And some breaking news coming in. The anti-conversion bill has been passed in the Karnataka Assembly at this point in time. This is, remember, coming amid stiff opposition, minorities fearing persecution as well. This anti-conversion bill, however, has been passed. It is an extremely controversial bill that has been discussed for several weeks now. Essentially, this bill says that marriage for unlawful conversion will be declared void. Offences under the Act are non-bailable as well. And there would be a 3 to 10-year jail term for forced conversion, especially in cases of minors and SC/ST. As well, and jail term as well as fine for mass conversions, and the accused will have to pay over 5 lakh rupees compensation to the victim. So these are some of the points in this bill. Neha joining us for more details here. Neha, this has been amid stiff opposition. The bill has been passed, but it has been extremely controversial.
That's right, Avni. After, months of, possibly deliberating on whether to bring in this bill or not, and today, just 2 days after the bill was actually tabled 2 days back on the floor of the Assembly, today we're seeing how this bill has been passed in the Assembly. Now the bigger test stands, of course, the test of the Council and whether the Karnataka government would be able to pass the bill in the Council. Let's tell you that even today, as amidst discussion and amidst a lot of ruckus on the floor of the Assembly, the bill was passed. The Congress was opposing it even till the last minute. And now that the BJP had the majority on the floor of the Assembly, the controversial bill has been passed. However, it remains to be seen at this point whether the BJP can garner the support of the JDS or the Congress over here, and whether they would be able to bring in this bill. Now, Avni, let's get to the provisions of this bill, why it's so controversial, why there's been so much opposition to it, why people have been protesting on the streets as well. The bill that's now formally been called, the Bill for the Protection of Right to Freedom of Religion, Act 2021. This bill essentially aims to put a complete stop on forced conversions and, conversions owing through allurement. So this is essentially the aim of the bill. Now, why is it that there's been so much opposition to this bill on ground? We saw a massive protest breaking out in Bengaluru, where, in fact, members from the Muslim community, members from the Christian community, you also had members from, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, several women as well, the civil society coming forward and protesting, stating that this bill is essentially a curb on their freedom of choosing their religion, and that the existing laws in place right now could have sufficed and there wasn't a need for a new bill. Now, what really remains to be seen is whether the government can actually bring this bill on the floor of the Council and pass it or not. And in the likelihood that that happens, we'll really have to hope that, the situation in the state remains peaceful.
Yes, absolutely, Neha. In fact, we do know how there has been a lot of, opposition to this bill. What has now been the reaction now that the bill has been passed? There has been stiff opposition in the Assembly as well. But right now that the bill is passed, what's been the reactions coming in from those who have been opposing it?
Well, Avni, it's just been, a few minutes now, about a minute or two since the bill was actually passed on the floor of the Assembly. So a little quick, of course, right now for reactions to be coming in. But let's recap what, communities have been saying over time now and even yesterday, and why they were really opposing this bill. So as of now, we pick up that, the Archbishop of Bengaluru as well, and, several leaders from the Muslim community also. You had transgender activists, women rights activists, all of them yesterday just stating one thing, that this bill is a curb on their freedom of religion. It's violation of the Constitution, and most importantly, all of them questioning what the necessity for a bill like this was. Even today on the floor of the Assembly, we saw how the Congress leaders like Siddaramaiah also, were opposing this bill, stating that this was quite different from what was proposed in 2016. So despite that, yes, amidst the ruckus and, the chaos on the floor of the Assembly, the BJP over here has managed to pass this bill. But we'll really have to wait and see as to now whether or not this is going to be challenged again in court, and if at all the bill stands the test of the Council or not.
All right, Neha, thank you so much for joining us with all of those details. But let's bring in some more reactions and voices here. Reverend Vijayesh Lal, General Secretary of Evangelical Fellowship of India, is joining me. Thank you so much, Reverend, for joining in. Your reaction here, your first reaction, the bill has been passed, and we do know there has been a lot of opposition to this.
Well, we are disappointed because the government chose to ignore sane voices and voices of concern, and still went ahead with this bill, which I believe will now pave way for more attacks against Christians in the state and more harassment.
Right. And, of course, like you pointed out, that this might pave the way for more issues that could crop up. But, did they ever reach out? Did they allow different views to be put forth or taken to, at all before deciding the contents of the bill?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It was a simple announcement. In Karnataka's case, it has always been a simple announcement, and then there were orders of surveys on church, and then there were news of attacks on churches, and selective surveys in 1 or 2 districts. But broader views were never invited. Nobody asked. Of course, delegations, including, led by the Archbishop of Bangalore, they did go and meet, and other delegations also did go and meet the Chief Minister and other authorities. But every time it was to a deaf ear almost. And they had the agenda, they went ahead with the agenda. It's as simple as that.
Right. Also joining me is Akai, Padmashali activist as well. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Your reaction here, Reverend Lal was just pointing out how this is going to pave the way for, more persecution as far as minorities are also concerned. Your reaction?
I am really disappointed, and this shows religious phobia by the ruling government in Karnataka. Even though we all were protesting against since 1 month discussion meeting, Honorable Chief Minister did not hear the voices of the marginalized and minority section. This is totally unconstitutional. Today, the floor which has been raised in favor for the bill and not has become an act. I think this is highly unacceptable. The legal certainty shall be challenging before the Honorable High Court of Karnataka. And I'm so glad that they do not have the majority in this council. Until they get this majority, I think that is the secondary issue. But the notion of religious phobia is something really unacceptable. I think the amount of attacks, discrimination, social stigma is going to be increased against the Christian community, not only Christian, I think across sections of vulnerability, especially women and children. I think if the government is blaming directly on its notion of, poverty, of inflation and other sector, I disagree with that. I think somewhere the government has to accept its, negligence policy in regard to the education, poverty and water. These benefits have been really working towards the marginalized and upper sections of society. I think today is a shame day for Karnataka.
Absolutely. Reverend Vijesh, if I can come back to you here, you did say that you fear the impact that this is going to have. If you could elaborate a little bit on that, what are the big concerns now as far as this bill is concerned, if it, of course, eventually goes through entirely?
Ma'am, throughout the country, we have seen this. In Madhya Pradesh, in Uttar Pradesh, in Jharkhand, whenever these laws were introduced, their introduction brought more persecution to the church there, more frivolous and false charges made against pastors and Christians in general, and then their implementation was always in a biased and selective. Now we are still facing that in Uttar Pradesh. It becomes very easy, very convenient for anybody to use these laws as an excuse and go to somebody and say that this person was trying to convert, and then it becomes then the process of getting justice itself becomes an harassment, as your case lingers on for years together. So that's why I use the word harassment. This will produce more violence in the short term and more harassment for Christians and Christian leaders and pastors in particular in the long run. Not only that,
right.
It is also unconstitutional in nature.
Right.
Its provisions. I mean, it is a khichdi, if you can say that, of laws that are existing in Gujarat, in Uttar Pradesh.
Right.
Chief Minister himself said, I will introduce provisions that were in Uttar Pradesh.
Right.
Now, it's
All right. I think we've lost that line. I'd like to thank both of our guests for joining us with their perspectives on the show. On that note, time to wrap up this edition. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned tomorrow.